Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. Thank you for joining us for our Lunch and Learn webinar series, which we're calling Where's the Meat? The point of this is no sales pitch, no fluff, straight into the technical. And today we're going to be talking about top reasons to use O3. For those of you I haven't met, my name is Andrew Foy. I'm the Vice President of AWP and Construction for O3. And today I'm going to be talking us through complete work package management, data management, and what exists outside of AWP. Okay, reason number one, straight into it. Why should we be using O3? First reason, and this should be considered table stakes. When you're talking about workplace planning and advanced work packaging, you need a complete work package management tool. So the first part of this is you need something that can manage everything through the life cycle of a project. We can cover 10 different work package types, all of those acronyms that you've heard, the EWPs, CWPs, PWPs, IWPs, VWPs, that whole alphabet soup. We can cover all of those directly out of the box. And what this means is we are able to support AWP right from that early FEL2, FEL3, select define stage, all the way up to commissioning and completion. So you have one seamless tool. When we get into construction, we're looking at some of the more graphical stuff. So we're looking at, for example, graphical packaging and non-graphical packaging. And what we mean by that, graphical packaging is where we're going to be using the 3D model augmented with a whole bunch of other data, and you can click on a few isometrics, add them to an IWP, and the system will then automatically pull the correct drawings, create a material list, create an estimate for the work, create a constraint list, and create the execution tasks associated with that work. So instead of the workplace planner having to do hours and hours and hours of work to create packages, all of this now can be done very simply on the screen, very, very graphically. Importantly as well, though, we can also support non-graphical packaging. So not everything is 3D modeled. So we need to be able to handle also things like cables. Cables are always the most obvious example because nobody models cables. Instead, you have a cable list. We can pick from that cable list, basically using it as a pick list that you say, I want to add this cable, this cable, this cable to this IWP, and the intent for this IWP is I am pulling and terminating or whatever the scope is, and we get the same effect. We can pull the correct drawings, we can create a material list, we can create an estimate for the work, add the tasks, and add the constraints. So all of this then is supported by customizable workflows and constraint management. So the workflows are the process of who needs to see this. So for example, I'm a workplace planner, I create a package, who do I need to send it to? In the old days, we used to do this by walking a piece of paper around from trailer to trailer. Here's my IWP, please read it and sign it. And it was incredibly tedious, and you'd have to go and chase people because it would always be sitting on somebody's desk waiting for a wet signature. Nowadays, it's all done digitally, so I can assign it to the next person in the flow. They can review it, mark it up, make changes, whatever it is, make comments, send it to the next person in the flow for approval. If you need to give it to the owner or the engineer or whoever needs to see it, and then it gets closed out. And then I can move into my constraint management process, where as a planner, I am identifying all of the things that are going to mess me up if I don't get them done before this package is released. The golden rule, don't release a package with constraints. So I can then, as a planner, use O3 to create all of those constraints, some of which are created automatically when I create the work package. Do I have the drawings? Do I have the materials? Do I need scaffold for this? Do I have access to the job site? Have I got off my chair and walked to the site to check that I can see how we're going to do this? And then we can manage that transition from bulk to system. So everybody hurtles at 100 miles an hour towards mechanical completion, but projects are not done, and typically the work of the contractor is not done until you've handed it over. So that changes from bulk construction, where you're just really driving quantities, and we're looking at systems. So within O3, we can map and manage everything by CWP, by that bulk construction, but we can also map right down to the component level based on your turnover systems. So I know if I need to turn over the instrument air system in 6 weeks, I can look at a view of my model and I can look at all of my packages and determine whether I'm going to be on time to release that in 6 weeks, for example. And lastly, dashboard reporting for all of this. So we need to be able to take that massive amount of information and display it in a way that's easy to consume, and each different person gets to see the things that are important to them. Okay, reason number two, data management. And this is where we're getting much more into the weeds. So AWP as a process sits in the middle of everything you do on a project, and you need your AWP software to be able to do the same. You cannot expect that your AWP software is going to come in and replace everything. You don't want to replace your P6. Most customers have a document management system, a materials management system, a modeling tool. We can't afford to say, scrap everything you're doing and change it. So you need your AWP software to be agile enough to be able to work with all of those different tools. So O3 provides full ETL capabilities, which is extract, transform, and load. We can take data from those tools, we can map it to our system and load it in. And when I say map it, I'm talking about simple things like if in your source system it's called key quantity, and in our field it's called key QTY. It's a very simple sort of one-time mapping process to say this is what you called it, this is what we call it. And then once you've done that mapping once, it's done. It never needs to be done again. We do not need to have an army of people spread all over the world doing lots of Excel sort of manipulation of your data. We integrate very, very well with a lot of other tools. So like I said, on all of our projects, we typically integrate with document management, materials management, fabrication data, 3D model, timesheet data, completion software. There's a whole raft of things. So we can do that with a very simple Excel extract from that source system. So, or with something like P6, we can take the XCR file or an Excel extract, pull it into O3, and then your data exists in O3. Or we can upgrade that for the key systems to a RESTful API. And a RESTful API just speaks to the idea that the two tools are talking to each other electronically without a human sitting in the middle. If you can remove that person, you can remove a potential point of failure. So instead of somebody having to do an export from one system and us pull it in, we can just have the two systems electronically talking to each other. And then for the model side, a very key component is a lot of other tools require you to sort of send your model away to somewhere else in the world and have a lot of work done on it and do a lot of conditioning of your model and a whole lot of processes before you can use it. With O3, all of that is built into the tool. So you supply us your 3D model and we perform a parsing process on that 3D model directly in O3, and our uploads of models take a matter of hours instead of the traditional days or weeks. We can also augment your 3D model. So we take the original model from the engineers and we can augment it with things like fabrication data. So as a workface planner in the field, I don't care that a piece of pipe is every single component, every flange, every piece of stick of pipe, every elbow, every 90. I don't care about that. What I want to know is what's the spool going to look like when it shows up? So we can take the data from your steel fabricator, from your spool fabricator, and overlay it on the model so that what I can represent in the model is the condition that it's going to show up. So when I click on a piece of pipe, it highlights the spool or the isometric rather than the individual components. And for anybody worried about the data side of things, we always hear concerns about, oh, well, my data is not perfect. Quite bluntly, nobody's data is ever perfect. We have done more than 500 jobs, more than 550 projects now. We've never seen perfect data, to be perfectly honest with you. Your data is always going to have things that are missing, but the beauty with O3 is we can pull data from multiple places and sort of fill in the gaps. So if your model doesn't have everything we need, we can do that through linkage with engineering reports or other Excel-based files or other systems to fill in what we need. And we have the capability of bridging some of those gaps directly within O3. And then lastly, on the data side, you need to know how good or bad your data is, so we can provide what we call data integrity reporting. So you give us the data and we can tell you then the status of it, the quality of it, which parts are missing, what we're going to be able to fix, and in some cases what you need to go back to the source and fix at source. Okay, third reason. So we've been talking a lot about AWP, but AWP is really a project management process, and it needs a strong project management team and a strong project management tool sitting underneath it to make it effective. So O3 offers digital project management capabilities. So this is things like action tracking or team boards. So this is for any of you who've been familiar with, we've got an Excel spreadsheet for our action log for our project, and it sits on SharePoint, and we have a meeting every 2 weeks, and everybody typically panics 5 minutes before the meeting because they think, whoops, I forgot to update my actions in this spreadsheet and I'm going to look like a fool in this meeting. All of that is now digitized directly within O3. So your phase-by-phase deliverables, your team goals, anything like that can be made into digital actions, put on team boards, assigned to an owner, assigned a due date, and then I can see what I need to do. I can see all of my actions. I can see what everybody else is working on, what's on time, what's late, and we get much, much better accountability. We can do the same sort of thing with requests for information and risk management. So requests for information, for example, for the years I spent doing construction, was a very, very painful and tedious process. You would type a question into an Excel template, attach a bunch of photos and email it to somebody, and then it would go into this void. You have no idea what's happening. And then eventually, you'd have a meeting once a week where you'd shout at the engineers and say, why haven't I got my information back? Then you finally get it, and then you're maintaining an Excel log, and very, very ugly process. Within O3, all of that is done digitally. I raise the question, I can attach photographs, I can attach model drawings and markups and everything. The engineers can go straight into O3, review the request, push it to the right person, get them to answer it, and I can see all of the steps of the process, so I know exactly what's happening. Same with risk management. Instead of another disconnected system or an Excel spreadsheet, all of this can be baked right into O3, and it means that any of those mitigation tasks, for example, become actions that are then tracked. So it's not just, oh, yeah, we're going into a risk review meeting and I forgot to do my thing. Those are, again, those same actions, and we can track what are our top risks, who are the action owners for the mitigation, and are things getting done. We can also do some of the basic sort of field management stuff like daily reports. So for those of you familiar with filling out that daily Microsoft Word document saying, the weather was this and we had this number of people on site and this is what we did today, all of that now is built into O3. Same with interface management, no longer just a series of disconnected worksheets and email back and forth, fully digitized and centralized in the tool. And all of this is supported by dashboard reporting so that you can see the status of everything that's going on. And by getting everybody into the tool, by having the construction team, the engineers, the owners, the vendors, the suppliers, this becomes a true collaboration space. We're not counting seats. Everybody gets a chance to look, and AWP really can be a collaboration exercise. Okay, run through the top 3 items, so I'll just quickly provide a recap. So firstly, work package management capabilities, that's got to be table stakes, right? For all project phases, do not think of AWP as construction phase only. You need a tool that's going to be able to support AWP through the whole life cycle. The A in AWP is advanced for a reason. We're advancing it into the early engineering stages, and you need to be able to do the process and digitize throughout. The AWP software you use needs to be able to handle your data. If you end up having to, I always picture the sort of hamsters on a wheel, you sending your data over to someone else and somebody else has got to take an Excel spreadsheet and do a bunch of manipulation on it. You don't want that. It slows your process down and makes everything way more laborious and expensive. You need a software that can take all of your data as is and make it work for AWP. And then lastly, AWP is very important, but it is best when it's supported by digital project management. Get away from Excel spreadsheets. The fewer Excel spreadsheets you have on your project, the better. So make your digital project management a true collaboration space where everybody can see what's happening, everybody can contribute, and then you really get better results and better accountability for your team. So like we said, we keep this to 15 minutes, so we're at the end of our time. If you would like to learn more, please visit our website at www.o3solutions. We hope this one was informative. We deliberately kept it brief. Like I said, this is the first in a series of these lunch and learn sessions, so please keep an eye out for the following sessions, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you very much for your time.